Happy New Year and welcome to today's podcast. Karen Heath has spent some time today sharing some of her very insightful wisdom on social media and storytelling for schools. I'm so excited for you to meet her. She is Her official title is Supervisor of Communications for Berrien RESA. It's a regional educational service agency out of Michigan. They serve about 15 schools, and she's got some great insight into customer service as social media, like what we should be thinking about and how to prepare for it. We're going to be talking about a statewide Twitter chat that she helped lead and how that helps some schools. And then we're going to dive into some staff appreciation and some student stories. You're not going to want to miss the examples. I think these are really powerful things that you can pull in to your district. Although some of you are going to want to move into one of her districts in Michigan because she's going to talk about how in 2022 she's actually going to be helping some of her schools tell their stories and celebrate the great stories that are happening. So that's awesome. I'm so excited for you to meet Karen. Just a quick ask, guys. This is episode 92. Episode 100 is right around the corner. And for episode 100, we are looking for your voice in sharing some of the best tips or tricks that you have learned from this podcast, that you have learned from maybe a webinar that you attended, that you learned from a blog. And we want you to record that with a voice memo or a short video, and so that we can play them on podcast 100. So all you need to do is record yourself and share your name, your school or district, the state you're from, the title, and then share your best tip or most impactful thing you've learned. If you can share a specific story of how you used it in your school or district, that would be awesome. And then we just need you to email those submissions in. Email them into podcast 100 with the subject line. You're going to email them into Andrea at socialschool4edu.com. In the show notes, we've got all the specifics written down. So if you're on the go while you're listening to this, come back to the show notes. Please give the gift of sharing some of your best tips with all of the listeners, and you might just be featured in episode 100. So we would absolutely love for you to help out with that. So, and that's due by the end of January. So January 31st is the last day that you can submit your little tip or trick where you might hear yourself on episode 100. So now let's get on to episode 92. Here we go. Let's meet Karen Heath. All right, today's K-12 PR tip comes straight out of the conversation from Karen, so I'm giving you a little sneak peek into what she's going to share. But this is a very simple tip. If you want your posts to be celebratory and happy and giving people an inside look of what a welcoming place of, the school that you have, then you should do this one tip, which is smile as you write your social posts. Okay. Sometimes we can get stressed out and worried, and we're meeting a deadline and all of that. And if you would simply smile as you write your social post, your voice, the way you come across, the way you use maybe some emojis, it's going to change. You just change one simple thing, which is that frown or smile that you have on your face. It's going to change everything in how you come across on social media. And it really is about customer service. It's about that impact, that attitude, that persona that you are putting out there to the world in your social media posts when you're celebrating your school. Just that one little tip. So think about that. The next time you're writing something, put a smile on your face. Write it. I bet that it's going to come easier. It's going to come across more celebratory. And hey, when we can make better connections in celebrating our schools, everybody wins. Our schools win, our students win, our staff wins. So hope that tip helps. Now let's get into a lot more tips with our interview with Karen Heath. Welcome to the podcast, Karen Heath.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you today.
I am too. And we can see each other. You guys can check out the episode on YouTube if you want to as well. But it's like we're kind of used to this, right? All these digital connections.
Yeah, this is our new normal, and I anticipate this being our normal for a few more years.
Yeah, definitely. And there's advantages and disadvantages. Of course, it's good to be together in person, but on a podcast interview, we're good. So, Karen, why don't you kind of share some of your background and your role as the supervisor of communications with your Berrien RESA group?
Sure, absolutely. So, we are a service agency that provides consortium based services to 15 public school districts in Southwest Michigan. We're one of 56 regional service agencies across the state, and very similar to BOCES, I believe, in New York and ISD districts in Texas. We provide services that the school districts need of us. So, we're constantly reinventing, reshaping our service scope based on our constituents' needs. So for me, in my role, we run a true advertising agency within our district. So our districts come to us for support, guidance, crisis communication help, as well as graphic design needs. And we do that not only for our service districts, but we do it internally as well. So we offer services to students who have a whole spectrum of needs. We have students with impairments as well as those in our juvenile center, those who have advanced and gifted needs. So we provide services internally and externally, and then we also support some legislative activity as well.
Okay.
So prior to coming here, I worked for the legislature. I was a communications director in the Michigan State Senate, and also had the honor to serve the state of Michigan as the past president of the Michigan School Public Relations Association. So I've had a long career. I feel like I've been doing this forever, but I'm learning something new every single day.
Absolutely. Do how many years have you been in school like communications?
16 years in school, PR, and then an additional 5 in government work.
Okay. And yeah, so I mean, we're going to talk a lot about social media today. Obviously, that many years ago, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. And you're right. We're learning new things all the time.
Absolutely. If I could have imagined what my communication responsibilities were back then, I don't think I would have said, "Yeah, I'll do it for 20 years." No way, no way. But I'm so grateful because I feel like as our students are growing up and they're shaping how we communicate, they're also shaping and creating the platforms that we're using. So it's like I have this inside secret to watch the developers become graduates of our programs, and then I get to utilize, the software that they're developing. So it's a really cool experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. And every day there's something different, which keeps things interesting when you're talking about your career. So, Karen, you're going to give us a really unique perspective today in that you have experience and guidance for schools using social media, but you're also a service agency who uses some of your same communications efforts in, in communication of what you offer for schools and all of that. So, just in regards to the social media aspect of your job, can you just kind of share maybe both realms of that, of how that fits in with your role?
Sure. Social media is really a primary focus for our team. It's part of every communication strategy that we write internally or externally. It's for our stakeholders the number one way they receive information. So Southwest Michigan's a really unique media hub. So we are kind of sandwiched between Kalamazoo, South Bend, Indiana, and Chicago. So for our stakeholders to really be able to access local news, they're going online. They're going to social media first. So, knowing that about our stakeholder audiences, it helps us market and really place information in very specific areas. We're not relying on those traditional media outlets that, broadcast radio and daily newspapers because it just doesn't meet our audience needs. And
Mhm.
that's true of our own parents as well as the parents in our local districts. We are very focused on what we share. We call it our power day, one day every 6 months, where my team and I sit down and we draft out those standard social media posts that we know are scheduled to go out. Things, for example, events. We know when we have spring break and winter break. We know when semester marking periods are. So we can pre plan what it is that we're going to share, and we coach our local districts to do the same thing. so that we're able to free up our time for crisis communication emergencies. And if we have tweaks that we need to make to those posts, we're just changing words. We're not reinventing anything. So we do that once in the summer and we do it once in the winter. And it gives us 6 months of planning and also makes me feel good that we've done all that pre work. But we coach our local districts to do the same thing. And we just tell them, pull out a spreadsheet, just a simple, Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet, and draft out what those events are and write out each of those posts, depending on what platform they're choosing to use. Our residents really like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Those are our top three in our area. And we research that. And we also coach our local districts to do the same thing. We have the good fortune of being in a community where we have a university, a community college, and some local state colleges. And those students are doing market research all the time. And one of the things we request on a regular basis is that they tell us what are our constituents in our county using as their priority social media platforms. So we partner with those groups and really investigate, you know, what is their preference? How are they using it? Why? When? We look at all that analytic data from a user aspect as well as from a survey aspect. We ask our constituents as well, what their preferences are, but we also coach our local districts to do the same thing. What may work in one school district, maybe, in one part of our county may not be the same for another part. So we really try to differentiate and understand what those specific needs are and coach to that point.
Okay, awesome. So I got a question for you because I know you are really passionate and do some coaching with your schools, I think, around customer service and
Absolutely.
extending some of the customer service aspects of the school beyond just in-person stuff to online. So what are, thinking about some of the pre-planning and thinking about strategically using some of those social media channels that people are on, what are some ways that schools can use social media to extend kind of that customer service approach and feeling for their followers?
I think you nailed it when you said feeling. How a person feels when they walk into that school building or how you want them to feel when they look at your website should be emulated no matter what platform you're using. So, if you're expecting someone to greet you with a smile when you're writing your content, can you smile as you're writing it? You really want to be able to feel what that tone, what that branded cultural experience is of your district. It shouldn't change. There shouldn't be a robotic barrier between the two. And I also like to encourage individuals who have those difficult conversations online when they have, that person that has said something that is not true or is offensive. How would you approach that if you were having that conversation with a parent or with a student in your office? It shouldn't be any different than when you're doing so online. That brand reach should come all the way through. Because if you think about it, you're not only representing yourself in that conversation with the person you're talking to online in that exchange, but you have voyeurs, you have people who are potential, district residents, you have potential new families coming in that are watching how you're handling those situations online. The same thing is true if you're promoting an event or trying to help clarify or understand something that's happening. You approach it from that same customer service perspective that you would have in a face-to-face conversation. And it's key for us. And we work really hard. We have a few people who are able to share information online on behalf of the district, and they go through training. They go through customer service training to make sure that they are representing the district at a level that we would expect, just like they would if they were face to face with an individual.
I love this aspect, and it's something I haven't talked enough about. It's increasing your touch points, right? I mean, you have these touch points that obviously happen when people are in person, but online, you have multiplied your opportunity to have those touch points, and we've got to think about how do we come across, how are we responding to people's questions, even the attitude that you have when you're creating your posts of, hey, if we want to have a smiling, welcoming atmosphere, that's what we need to have come across in our posts as well. Um, do you have anything specific in regards to some of your training that you've done with those folks that are working on at the district? Any kind of exercises you have them go through, or something you could share with us? I guess you've already kind of shared a little bit, but anything you can share with our listeners?
Sure, we do good old scenario training.
Yeah.
Here's a post. How would you respond? And I always go back to my speech writing days when I worked at the Capitol. It takes a few weeks to figure out what that tone and what the expectations are of the legislator or the person you're writing speeches for. And it's no different than an organization. We ensure that new team members, especially to the communication team, have access to our material and they can feel that rhythm. They can feel that sense of what is it that we want people to know about our district? How do they lead their sentences? And just walk them through scenario after scenario. And the other thing, too, is we're going to make mistakes, and how you handle those mistakes, you coach them through that process, too. Social media, while it can be rough and tumble sometimes, it also can be an opportunity to demonstrate we're people, we make mistakes, we can own those mistakes, but doing so with grace and making sure that we're ensuring student outcomes, student success every step of the way. But yeah, we like those scenario trainings. We sit down with every new staff member and we talk to them about their usage of social media, how to portray themselves. We actually write it out in our acceptable use policy that if you are participating and engaging on social media conversations and you're representing the district, this is how we want you to do it. And we script it for them so that there's no question on their own time. If they're writing something and they're saying, "Well, I'm a school psychologist," or I provide occupational therapy support for students, and I think this. We want to empower our staff to be able to share their good work, so we coach them through that process.
Okay. Yeah, getting them prepared. I love the scenario training. Um, and but after you've been in social media for a few years, it doesn't take you much to come up with those scenarios because they happen all the time. Uh,
Absolutely.
what
Yes, they do.
what would you do? I always tell people, we do social media management for almost 100 school districts, and it's like if you're worried about one specific thing that could happen, I probably have like 5 examples of that exact thing happening. So,
Mhm.
anyways, so you have led social media in a lot of different ways, and just kind of switching gears here, you've had some success with some statewide Twitter chats, and Twitter not as big in my area in Wisconsin as far as our schools, but I think it definitely is a great opportunity for professional development for educators and things like that. So, can you just tell me a little bit about your Twitter chats for the state of Michigan?
Absolutely. There was a project that was presented to me, I think the first time it was about 2 years ago. There are 20 counties in Michigan that formed together to create a consortium called the Reading Now Network. And this group, their primary focus was helping families and communities grow engagement to help promote early childhood literacy. So this group would plan symposiums and other events where they could create a community of practice to just support one another. The problem that they had encountered was they were all over the state of Michigan. It's a big state, and they couldn't get together frequently enough to really learn from each other. So the project that they were working on was, how do you pull in the business community to really support early reading? So we wrote a communication plan, and to support that, we started doing some Twitter chats or Twitter town halls where we would give an assignment and say, okay, today you're going to focus on a business and you're going to invite them into your school and we're going to talk about how it went. Or the next week, we would say, okay, parents, go visit a business, bring a book, and talk to the business owner or somebody who's there about reading and why it's important for that business. And then the next week, it was another assignment. So every few weeks, we got together online and we would write all our questions out and share it with everybody who was responsible in 20 of those counties for delivering this project, and really started an online conversation prior to all the video conferencing and things that we do now as a routine practice. but it helped them build bonds and talk to each other through snippets and emojis and gifs and all those fun things that really empowered and inspired and gave them some motivation to keep working on this long-term project. And it was great. We had tons of engagement. Lots of individuals were borrowing ideas from one another, lots of email exchanges after the fact. But what I loved about it more than anything else was it took something that was very nebulous, very system think, and it made it tangible through a platform that is not tangible. So, it was a really cool experience. And I think from there, as those individuals were building their literacy plans in their own schools, they were then adopting Twitter chat forums for the parents and the teachers that were involved in their individual programs. So it grew. It was really an exciting thing to see.
Yeah, that's great. And I can see, there's listeners out there that are maybe with a service agency that could see, hey, we can really bring these folks together. But I love the way that then that can transfer into things that you can do at the school district level. Just learning what the power of a Twitter chat could bring. Now all of a sudden they can use that in their school district as well. So that's awesome. Um, so you have kind of a large staff that within your service agency. And so now I just kind of want to, again, I guess, shift gears a little bit. It's spread out among schools because you serve the 15 different schools. And so you kind of have tentacles out there that are. So, in regards to your service agency celebrating your staff, how are you able to do that?
Sure. We have an employee appreciation program, and it's called HEART. HEART is an acronym that stands for humble, empathetic, adaptable, remarkable, and transparent. And we have little heart cards that staff can fill out when they notice one of their colleagues representing one of those principal ideas. And what's fun is they share that with their supervisor. The supervisor reads it at a staff meeting, and we hang it on a wall so the public can see it. But because we're so spread out, half of our internal staff didn't know what the other half was doing. So we decided it needed to go on an online platform, but we thought, let's expand and let's help our community really learn all those important, heartfelt things that our staff members do day in and day out and don't even think twice about it. So we launched the Be RESA Has Heart campaign. And every time we have one of those heart cards that just really stand out to us, we put it online along with a picture of our staff member, share the snippet that was shared about them, and it gives our community an opportunity, our students an opportunity to virtually high five their educator, but then their families are seeing all the love that they're getting from their colleagues, and it helps not only boost their morale, but it also helps others in our education world see that it's great to be in this profession. There are hard days and things that don't go the way we had planned, but then when we can show and uplift spirits, why wouldn't you want to come and be a part of this organization? There's so many good things that we celebrate and we're so proud of because our staff are incredible. They do some amazing work, and we really wanted to highlight that. So we've been doing this campaign for a few years now, and we've worked really hard to make sure we're being representative of all parts of our organization, just to make sure that everybody's uplifted, everybody feels important, because they are. They really are. And so, we just enjoy it. And now our business community sees that and they're wanting to send letters. Hey, we know that student because maybe they're placed at a work site, and we know that teacher, and yeah, they do a great job. And so it just spreads out from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So your heart program, I was just looking at your Facebook page and I'll link in the show notes an example. So you don't do necessarily one of those a week, or is that kind of how you're doing it, is on a weekly basis?
We try to get 3 or 4 out a month.
Okay.
And when it happens, it happens. We are waiting on permissions from staff members because we wouldn't put anything out without their blessing. So it's dependent on them.
Okay. Well, in a time, Karen, when the morale of staff is kind of low, right? I mean, we're just it's been a tough year, and I don't know quite why this school year seems to be tougher even than last year, just because it's just continuing on, just like you said with virtual meetings, that's going to continue for years. Some of the effects of the pandemic are certainly going to be long lasting, and our staff, it's just been so tough. So for a simple way of, taking something that's offline, which is this recognition of staff members really shining, and then bringing that online to celebrate with even more people, like that's something a school could easily do it as well, right?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. We are launching a new campaign in January, and it's called Learn by Heart. And from a service agency perspective, this is more of a coordination effort. But because our media market is so unique and because we really want to utilize social media platforms to accentuate our work, we are coordinating a story share experience with all 15 of our school districts. So they will be sharing stories with me. I will be writing them up, rebranding them as part of the Learn by Heart campaign, and then sending it back to that local school district to post on their social media platforms. And it's doing very much what the Be RESA Has Heart campaign does, but it celebrates not only the staff, but it finds those stories. It's that hidden narrative that nobody thinks to talk about, that are those golden nuggets that really show the compassion and why, school districts are the heart of our communities. But it's to remind our community that teachers and principals and custodians and lunch crews, they're working hard, and they're doing it because they care, and they're doing it because student success matters. And a lot of our school districts don't have the time to focus on social media or communications at all unless it's an emergency. So how can we as a service agency support them through that? So starting in January, we're hoping to launch 2 to 3 stories per school district per month, just back to their own community so that they can really appreciate and enjoy all those important things that our education staff are doing.
So do you think you'll end up sharing some of those stories back onto your social media channels as well?
So we will promote theirs.
Okay.
We will like all of theirs, but we'll do it internally for our own staff too.
Okay.
So the goal is to educate our community and help them understand what it is that our education folks do, to build morale because we know staff have been through so much, but then also really attract businesses and maybe new professionals to come to our county because there's so much to offer and because educators are supported, phenomenally in this area.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we will definitely promote and support as much as we can.
Well, we've got people listening, Karen, that all of a sudden want to be in your service agency realm of those 15 school districts because they're like, I want 2 or 3 stories written for me.
Right?
I think that's awesome. It's an awesome way to add value for them, because often you're right, like we get caught in the weeds of just doing what we have to do, kind of being in reactive mode. You're really focusing on the stories are there. We just got to uncover them a little bit, and then you're kind of putting them together.
Right, right. Yeah, it's my job to connect the dots. There's so much happening in our schools that we work right past them. We don't see that beautiful, nugget of heart and experience and success. And I get to see all of that from afar. So I think it's easier for me to pick up on those pieces. And it's great that our service agency is able to offer that opportunity.
Yeah.
We're really excited for it.
Definitely. So, just talking about some of those stories and in the past, what have been some of the best stories that you've either shared from an agency level of what you're doing or maybe on with the school districts? Do you have like 1 or 2 stories that just really stand out to you?
Absolutely. This is from a service agency perspective. It's my absolute favorite story. We received an email, and it was from a woman who was driving to work every day. And she noticed that she was behind one of our school buses. And every day, the bus would stop and it would take forever to load this student. And she was mad. She was so frustrated. And so she decided, and she's sharing all of this in her email, she was going to leave early and beat the bus. She leaves early and she finds herself immediately behind the bus. So she's the first car. And so she's watching what's happening as she's waiting for this very long pickup to happen. And there's a parent, a dad, and he's walking a student from the door to the bus. And the student happens to be a child who attends one of our center based programs. And this kiddo is bolting. He is excited to get on the bus. And the dad is doing his best to keep up with him with his lunch bag and his backpack and all the things that the student needs for his day. And the bus driver gets the kiddo on the bus, and the bus attendant stops. And, the whole process takes 30 seconds, but the bus doesn't go anywhere. It just stays still. So the woman is wondering, what on earth is going on? The bus attendant inside the bus positions the child to look out the window and is pointing to the dad. And the child is banging on the window and waving, and he is screaming, I get to go to school. I get to go to school. And the dad is waving, and the woman who sent the letter is now crying because she understands this interaction is critical, not only for the student to have a great day, but for that dad to feel secure that the student's going to have a great day, for the bus driver to, start their day off right. And she has a whole new found respect for the services we provide because she was able to see the story. So after submitting that, and I'm sobbing, thinking, "Oh my gosh, this has everything we need for a fantastic social media post." We asked her, "Would you mind sharing it?" So we shared it with all of our staff first, and then we put it online. And I think that was the highest rated viewing, liking, sharing story we have ever had because it captured the essence of our service agency, and it validated the importance of every job we have, no matter how big or how small. So that by far, that is my absolute favorite story.
So, do you have a direct link that I could share in the show notes for that post?
Yeah, I'll find it for
Okay,
you.
so by the time we get this episode launched, Karen will have shared that with me, and it'll be waiting for you in the show notes so you could check it out. Oh, I love that. A lot of times when you dig in, there's a story behind a story, right? And so for her, it was
Right.
just she was annoyed, and now all of a sudden she understands what it's all about, and now she probably doesn't mind being behind that bus.
No,
If she,
no, not at all.
if she needs to because she's a part of something bigger. Well, our time has flown by, Karen, and this has been such a great conversation around customer service and some of those Twitter chats and your staff appreciation and then some of these student stories. Um, as we kind of wrap up, what's your best like social media tip if you were to just kind of end with one of your best tips for people listening? What do you think that would be?
Be adaptable. I think that as technology changes, be willing to learn what those new platforms are, what it can do, but understand that as our stakeholders grow up, graduate from school, their needs are going to be different. And we have to be willing to adapt to what those needs are. And as our communities grow and develop and change, those needs change as well. So once you think you've got it figured out on social media, you have to learn it all over again. So I would recommend being as adaptable as possible.
Yeah, not only do the platforms change, but you've got an audience that's kind of constantly changing as well. So, that's a great tip. Awesome. I love this conversation, Karen. Thank you so much. If listeners want to stay connected to you, what is the best way to do that?
Sure, they can reach me on Twitter at Karen_Heath.
Okay, so we'll also link that, but yeah, you can just check out Karen_Heath, Heath. That'll be awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening today, and thank you for your time, Karen, and sharing some of your expertise. We'll link the website as well for your service agency, and definitely if you're listening to this and you've got a service agency in your area, most states have them. They might need to listen to a little advice and some of the services that Karen's providing because it could provide some great insight for them and maybe some different ways that they can then support you in your role. So thanks for being such a great leader in this realm and for everything that you do for schools, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah,
I appreciate
awesome.
your time.
Well, everybody, we will see you again next week. It's 2022, and we're going to continue to be with you every Monday morning. We have a new episode, and next week will be no different. So we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Thanks.